Well, I have 301. Should we go on, or do you think?
There's Matt Roberts, just a second. Okay. Yeah, we have quorum and you can proceed. We are expecting at least maybe one more, but we can join them and get them on board as they get here.
Okay, great. I am Mayor Courtney Shipley. This is the Metropolitan Planning Organization for Lawrence Douglas County meeting for January 20th, 2022. And now I will let Jessica Mortinger read our kind of rules and guidelines for this meeting.
Good afternoon. I'm Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager on video. We'll work side along Chair Courtney Shipley to facilitate the meeting proceedings. This broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and public access cable channel 25. During the meeting, when you're not participating, please mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon found in the lower left-hand corner of the Zoom menu. Just remember to unmute if and when you need to speak. Please remember to state your name and title for the benefit of those listening remotely. You can turn your video on and off. Sorry, I'm admitting someone. On the video icon for the menu for the purpose of the public meeting, keep your video on when you're participating in the meeting. If you're not participating, it's okay to turn your video off just to turn it back on when you're participating. If you're participating by phone, you can click *6 to mute or unmute your phone. Individuals who registered in advance to provide public comment will be remotely called upon by name. There are a couple members of the public registered today, so we will see what they are here for. When you're called upon, please unmute your device and state your name before speaking. We'll then call for in-person public comment for anybody physically present, and there's no one physically present at this point in time. If anyone does show up with presence, we will follow social distancing protocols and other safety protocols. All motions need to be stated clearly, and after the motion is made and seconded, I will call roll call for each member individually to provide their vote. Staff will then announce whether the motion carried and the count of the vote. I'll turn the meeting back over to Courtney Shipley, and we can do roll call.
Mayor Courtney Shipley. Yeah, I think we have a couple new people, so we don't always do much in the way of introductions, but if the new people maybe would like to say a couple things about themselves, that might help this time, just so we know who they are. Go ahead and call the roll for me there. Oh, yeah, because I can't see everybody.
You're fine.
Okay.
Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager. Carter.
Here.
Kelly. Larson.
I'm here.
Welcome. Messina.
Here.
Roberts.
I'm here.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, Roberts is representing Lecompton as the voting members this year of the smaller cities in the county. Shanklin.
Here.
And Shipley.
Mayor Shipley here.
We have some other members of staff on the call and public. If they would like to introduce themselves, they can at this time.
Heather Tice.
I'm Adam Weigel. I'm the manager for Lawrence Transit.
Heather Tice. I work at Cottonwood Incorporated as a day director, but I am interested in MPO and transportation.
Emily Lyson, Lawrence Farmers Market, just kind of seeing how this is all coming together, and yeah, excited to see what's going on. Just kind of listening in, guys, today, really.
All right, well, welcome.
Great. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the next item, which is public comment. Is there anyone there in the room or online that looks like they're here for public comment? I'm not seeing anything here. Okay. Then we'll go ahead and move on to approving the minutes for November 18th, 2021. Hopefully the people that were here had a chance to review those, but I would entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
Motion to approve November 18th meeting minutes. Matt Messina, KDOT.
Anyone else? Mayor Shipley, I will second that. It's a little weird, but I'll do it. Jessica, can you do roll for me?
Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager. We'll do roll call for minutes. Carter,
Yes.
Larson,
Here.
Messina,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Shanklin.
Yes.
Okay, Shipley.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Great. Okay, let's move on to the first agenda item. Oh, we didn't talk about this, Jessica. I don't remember how it went last time. But that's the election of the chair and vice chair for 2022.
Yeah, Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager. Typically, this committee does an annual election for chair and vice chair of this body, which is facilitating the meeting proceedings for the meeting with the agenda that staff present and put together. And the vice chair acts in lieu or absence of the chair. And so that appointment can be within any of the eligible voting membership of the committee. And not everyone should volunteer at once.
It may be more clear why Patrick's not here yet.
Matt Messina, KDOT. I'm more than happy to permanently serve as the vice chair and fill in whenever needed, perpetually.
Any others? Mayor Shipley, I'm happy to do it again if everyone else is cool with that. I just always like to leave space for other people who want to try new things. And I appreciate that not everyone loves this part, but we've seemed to be having pretty much a good time with it. So I'm happy to do that again if no one else is interested.
Mayor, thanks for stepping up on that. I appreciate it. That's great.
So we are looking for formal action for that appointment of chair and vice chair for this year.
This is Vice Mayor Lisa Larson, and I move to approve the chair and vice chair. The chair is Courtney Shipley and the vice chair as Matt Messina.
David Carter, Planning Commission, second.
Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager, for a roll call vote. Carter,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Messina,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Shanklin,
Yes.
Shipley.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you so much. Okay, then let's move on to the juicy bits. Transportation 2040 Amendment 2. Jessica, are you going to be doing this one for us? Okay.
Yes. All right. Hopefully you can share my screen. What we have before you today for consideration is a request that was brought to us by the Kansas Department of Transportation for Amendment number 2 to Transportation 2040. We're asking for your recommendation and approval today to post this formal draft for a formal 30-day public comment period before it would be brought back to you for consideration and approval to amend our transportation plan. The amendment of this plan requested is the inclusion and the addition of K33 Douglas County reconstruction, which part of the project is from Franklin County line to US 56. There's a larger project at play here that was funded as part of the Kansas Department Eisenhower Legacy Transportation Program in their pipeline of projects. At this point, that's a rolling program, and this project has been identified At this point in time. 2 miles about of this project are in Douglas County, which requires its inclusion in Transportation 2040 to be consistent and allow the obligation of funding to this project. You can see this, document that we put together shows the pages that would be amended in our long-range transportation plan to include this in the fiscally constrained project list. The project is about a $22 million project. $5 million of that is estimated to be in Douglas County and the remaining $17 million in Franklin County. And that part would not be programmed in our plan, but it would be consistent with other statewide plans and would be then eligible to program in our future transportation improvement program. There is some crash history along this corridor, and we believe that replacing the aging pavement and widening shoulders along this stretch of highway will improve the road for all users, providing additional space in the shoulder for safety improvements. Here's what this project budget looks like, and a future amendment to the TIP will include, once it's in the long range plan, we'll look to add and include this project for obligation. We kind of show it in regards to the environmental justice zones. You can see it's all the way here down in the southeastern part of the county. And so it's not within our EJ areas. So we believe it has no impact to that. This is the planned public comment period we prepare. I have to move this out a few days, probably to next week, but we'd be looking at probably a March final request for approval and bring back any public comments we receive to this plan. And then we've included in the memo, if you want to talk about any of these things, these are all the project pages that would change as a result of the addition of this project. I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have or direct any questions that are about this specific project to KDOT, to Matt Messina, as we move forward in this process to entertain a public process to amend this document.
Mayor Shipley, are there any questions for Jessica or maybe even Matt?
Yeah, this is Vice Mayor Larson. I did have a question on the funding for this, the $5 million. Does that money come from Douglas County, or is that a match of some sort? How does that work?
At this point, it's a state funded project. And so the IKE program of projects, when that moves through that IKE pipeline, that means it's been identified for funding through that project. So at this time, that project funding looks like they usually program those with state and local money. And we would find out those program splits as they don't, at this point, it's within their fiscally constrained project budget. So they have, the state has remaining unprogrammed money in our long range plan. And so that allows it to be fiscally constrained with this plan adoption for this amendment. And then in the TIP process, we would go through additional process to identify those exact funding sources. But as part of that IKE program budget, I would assume a majority of that is state budget. I don't know, Matt, if any local money has been identified for this project or if it's an entirely state project, assuming it's a highway project.
Right. So I would imagine that it's going to be a portion of state funds and federal safety because of what it's addressing here.
Good. This is Vice Mayor Larson. Thank you very much for that explanation. I did have another question, and it's been a while since I've been on this board. So could somebody explain to me what fiscally constrained means, how that term is being used?
Yeah, Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager. So the MPO documents of our long-range transportation plan, currently called Transportation 2040, and our transportation improvement programs, also known as our TIP, have projections in them related to what we reasonably expect for revenues based on all of our funding sources for regionally significant projects. So this would be included in that. Or projects that include federal money. And so when we talk about fiscally constrained in that sense, it's about not adding additional projects to the program project list until you have reasonably identified funding for those projects. So in some senses, KDOT, particularly in this plan, has particularly in the out years, because they're in the long range plan, there's banded projects. So in like 5-year bands, and in the out years, all of those programs aren't aren't scheduled because they're not necessarily known when we adopt a plan. So there's extra fiscal constraint left within the plan. And then when that funding is actually identified, when it actually comes into fruition and the project is identified and chosen by KDOT, like it has been in this recent Ike announcement, they make a request to program the project, and we verify that there is additional projected revenue to match the revenue they're identifying to put it in the fiscally constrained portion of the plan. These plans are not allowed to be we have a wish list in the plan, but these plans are not allowed to be the wish list of everything you want that's visionary. They're required to be realistic with what you are reasonably able to build.
Thank you very much, Jessica. I appreciate that. I got one more question, and I didn't see this when I read through the document. Is there a time frame expectation for when this will be done?
Yeah, Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager. So we jumped on this amendment in conversation with KDOT quickly after the announcement, recognizing that we will slate it in a band of years. When KDOT moves into this project, you can see here based on this note, at this time, Ike, the way they identify projects is in a rolling phase. So they often identify they say, here's the total project cost. We at this point are saying we're going to fund the engineer or the engineering and design of it. And so that's all that's authorized. You can see here, it'll say the right-of-way, utility, and construction phases are not authorized at this time, meaning they're not guaranteed to be completed at this point, and they will only be added to a phase in a year in the TIP when that value of funding is identified. So we put it in a band saying we think it will be in these ranges, and then the actual time frame for some of that project happens when it's actually put in the TIP within those bands.
Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate that. That's all I had. Thank you.
Commissioner Shanklin?
Greg Shanklin, Planning Commissioner. Jessica, is it accurate to say that approving this project won't have an impact on any of the other projects that have already been put into the plan? Or is it possible that we'll have to draw funds from other projects to fund this project?
Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager. I'd have to defer to KDOT a little bit about that. I do think we have multiple projects within our region that are in the Ike program that are rolling in the list of projects that they have authorized for preliminary engineering at this phase and are moving forward. Additional phases, whether that be right-of-way or utilities or construction, those are decided by KDOT when they identify available funding based on the process they have and how far they are within each phase, but also as they project out different projects. So I'm not to say that adding this necessarily eliminates another one, but it is another project they have in the phase to continue working on in relationship to all of the other projects that are in the Ike program, but in the scheme of things, it is also another project that's in the pot of money.
Matt Messina, KDOT, to clarify, was that a question more regarding the MPO's transportation long-range plan and those projects identified in there?
Well, just putting it into the context of a plan, I wonder about its impact on other elements of that plan.
Of the MPO's long-range plan, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so what we've seen in some of the other MPO areas, like Jessica already mentioned about the fiscally constraint and the time bands that get applied to projects, there's always projects that are looking to be extended out into future years. So we've always been able to find some wiggle room if it would impact the fiscally constraint bottom line. We're able to usually move something else that's a little less unknown that hasn't been selected to move forward for design or preliminary phases, and a project like this would take its place.
Okay, thanks.
Matt, Mayor Shipley, I'm a little puzzled by how this falls into Douglas County instead of Franklin County. Does Franklin County have other projects besides this Are we the only people around that it's appropriate to put this in?
That's yeah, Matt Messina, KDOT. I couldn't speak to that. I guess I'm not really finding out or realizing what it is you're referring to. So it's not actually
Mayor
in
Shipley, so
Douglas
it seems
County?
like this, yeah, it isn't it partly Franklin County? That's the part I was having a hard time with. Or it seems it benefits a different county more than it benefits us. So why is it in our sphere and our responsibility?
I think I can answer that for you. Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager. Typically, this project, had they cut the project off at the county line and it was only part of the road that was in Franklin County on K33 that was being repaired, and there was no money being spent in Douglas County, it would not need to be in our plan. But because this road goes into 2 counties and our county is covered by an MPO area, it's required to be in our plan for the state to obligate federal money on it. That's a federal regulation.
So they don't have an MPO that it could fall into?
No, Franklin County is not part of a current MPO. And so they fall into the state transportation plan and the projects that get identified as part of that process. They don't have a separate regional transportation planning process under an MPO. But we have had projects before that fall like on the line of the Mid-America Regional Council in Johnson or Wyandotte County, and or had overlapping county lines. And if that's the case, or Shawnee County, if we had a project, they're an MPO. And then we would have to make sure it was programmed in both long range plans.
Mayor Shipley, that still kind of goes to some of the questioning I think maybe Vice Mayor Larson was asking. I would think in the long run, one of my questions would be, are we sharing the cost of this project in kind of an even way between the counties?
Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager. At this point, the state hasn't asked for a local contribution from the counties for this project. They're paying for it with state money or federal resources because it's on their federal system or on their highway system.
Mayor Shipley, any other questions from their members for staff or for Matt? Matt, do you have anything else you'd like to say about this? It seems a little unusual to some things we've seen in the past, and I don't know if you're kind of understanding what my discomfort is or where it's stemming from. Do you have any feelings or thoughts about it?
Yeah, Matt Messina, KDOT. So you might be familiar with the T-Works program, and the way that was structured was at the beginning of the 10-year plan for that transportation program, all projects were selected and dedicated funding for pretty much all phases. This new program under Ike, being a 2-year rolling program where we identify different phases, allows that flexibility to allow you to discover any issues or conflicts with a project in the early phases before committing construction funds to it. So I think that's why you're seeing it here maybe more frequently. I don't recall this being brought up during the last round of projects in your MPO, but we do have this come up in all the other MPOs now as well. And it's
Matt,
just a little bit difficult.
This is the second amendment we've done. Point of information, this is the second amendment we have done based on Ike project announcements, which is not typical.
Right. But this is also a 10-year program, so it's going to be typical till 2030 or 2031.
Mayor Shipley, any other questions? I might, if you guys don't mind. Well, actually, let's do public comment. Is there any public comment? You see anything there, Jessica? Nope, not seeing any. Commissioner Carter, do you see why I am concerned? And if it is to like find points of conflict early, this could be a point of conflict. So do you have any feelings?
David Carter, Planning Commissioner, just to clarify, are you talking about your question about how it's administered through Douglas County or?
Well, my concern that we'll get further down the road, we will have said yes to it, and we put it in our MPO to, it seems appropriate or to be nice, whatever. And that then the cost sharing will not actually be equitable between the counties simply because evidently Franklin County doesn't have an MPO nearby.
Yeah. David Carter, Planning Commissioner, I completely understood your question. And I think from the answer, it sounds more just like an administrative fine point that in order for the funds to get dispersed, they have to go through the NPO if an NPO exists in the affected areas. And since the funds are coming from either the state or the federal government, it doesn't seem to be a conflict from my point of view, but it's a little bit of a labyrinth in terms of how it gets administered. But I don't have any. From your question to the answer, I don't have any other particular concerns.
Mayor Shipley, thank you. Any other discussion? Vice Mayor Larson, are you satisfied?
Yeah, this is Vice Mayor Larson. Yeah, I'm fine with it. After having those questions as well as everybody else's questions to answer, I'm ready to go forward with it.
Mayor Shipley, with that then, are there any emotions? Oops.
I'll make a motion. This is Vice Mayor Larson, and I move to approve releasing the Transportation 2040 Amendment 2 for a 30-day public comment period.
Mayor Shipley, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Jessica, can you do roll for us?
Yes, roll call. Carter?
Yes.
Kelly's not here. Larson?
Yes.
Messina?
Yes.
Roberts?
Yes.
Shanklin?
Yes.
Shipley?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Great, thank you, Jessica. Oops, sorry, my kids just came home. I apologize, everyone. The next item is other business. Do we have any other items to bring up?
Quick updates first.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
That's okay. Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager, and I have some quick updates first. The first of which is we are letting you know we have a pedestrian plan steering committee for the Lawrence pedestrian plan. This evening, we have a draft we will be talking with them about in the process for developing that plan for some of their final thoughts and comments as we prepare for a final draft to be considered for public comment, formal public comment period, and then consideration by TAC and MPO and Multimodal Transportation Commission and the City Commission in the future. There's also, I'll skip to 3 real quick, which is the KDOT update. There's the link where we have shared, KDOT has shared with us KDOT updates. And then if Adam is still on the call and if you want to, we have a, we can just say it together. We have a draft public participation plan out. This time the MPO worked with Lawrence Transit to draft a public participation plan, and that's currently out for a formal public comment period following some survey work that we did to establish our new standards in our regular 5-year cycle for the MPO update of our public participation plan before we get too far into Transportation 2050, which will be shortly underway as we wrap up these projects. But Adam and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have about that work.
David Carter, Planning Commissioner here. When I follow the link, I get a statement that no open topics there are no open topics in Lawrence Listens.
I put it on the wrong link.
Oh, okay.
That's why I'm really sorry. I will fix that. Jessica Mortinger, Transportation Planning Manager. Instead of on Lawrence Listens, I did it on the MPO Tell Us portal and I put the wrong link. That was my bad.
That's in the agenda is the wrong link?
Yes.
Okay.
But we did a press release and it would have been here. I will share this.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Just got it in the chat.
Thank
for the
you.
group.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, so we have some other surveys out for pedestrian plans for Baldwin City, Eudora, and Lecompton as well, but we have this public participation plan link out for comments. So there is a draft plan out there if you're interested to take a look at it. From some of the work that we do, it looks pretty, in some ways, it's pretty similar to some of the existing stuff that you would expect from the MPO. It expands and brings in alignment a lot of the work that transit has been doing on new standards and updates pedestrian or a public participation plan that Lawrence Transit has. This plan is in alignment with the International Association of Public Participation hierarchy for citizen engagement. And so you'll see some of those values represented in the plan that we hope to recognize that this is the next step in our evolution for public engagement. And we will continue to respond to the community's expectations and evaluate this plan and our processes if we hear differently from the community about how we're doing.
Mayor Shipley, great, thank you. Any other business? No, don't see anybody. Our next meeting is February 17th, 2022, unless Jessica informs us otherwise before that. She's pretty good about that. So we don't.
I'm not sure yet, so.
Okay. We don't normally do an exiting motion. We just wave nicely to each other. And it was nice to meet you, Matt Roberts. I hope you had fun today.
Hey, glad to be here, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, and the two visitors, I hope you had fun as well. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.